Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 11, Chapter 9, Detachment from all that is material. The avadhūta brāhmaṇa describes his 7 remaining gurus, beginning with the kurara bird. He also describes an additional guru, one's own body. The instruction received from the kurara bird is that attachment creates misery, but the person who is unattached and has no material possessions is qualified to achieve unlimited happiness. The avadhūta brāhmaṇa learned from the foolish, lazy child that by becoming free from anxiety, a person becomes capable of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead and experiencing supreme ecstasy. The instruction received from the young girl who kept just one conchshell bracelet on each wrist is that one should remain alone and thus steady one's mind. Then only will it be possible for one to fix one's mind completely on the personality of Godhead. Once several men arrived to ask for the hand of the young girl, whose relatives had coincidentally left the house. She went inside and began to prepare food for the unexpected guests by beating rice. At that time her conchshell bracelets were making a loud noise, rattling against each other, and in order to stop this sound she broke off the bracelets one by one until at last only one remained on each arm. Just as 2 or more bracelets make noise, if even 2 people reside in the same place, what to speak of many, there is every chance of mutual quarrel and useless gossip. The avadhūta brāhmaṇa also received instruction from the arrow maker, who was so absorbed in constructing an arrow that he did not even notice that the king was passing right by him on the road. In the same way, one must strictly control one's mind, concentrating it in the worship of Lord Sri Hari. The avadhūta brāhmaṇa learned from the serpent that a sage should wander alone, should not live in any prearranged place, should be always careful and grave, should not reveal his movements, should take assistance from no one, and should speak little. The instruction obtained from the spider who spins his web from his mouth and then withdraws it is that the Supreme Personality of Godhead similarly creates from out of himself the whole universe and then winds up into himself. From the weak insect who assumed the same form as the peshakrit wasp, the avadhūta brāhmaṇa learned that the living entity, under the sway of affection, hatred, and fear, attains in his next life the identity of that object upon which he fixes his intelligence. Seeing that the fragile material body is subject to birth and death, one who is sober should become devoid of material attachment to this body and should properly utilize the rare gift of human life in the pursuit of knowledge, endeavoring always for the achievement of the highest goal. Text 1. Shri Brahmana Vacha Parigraho hi dukkaya yadyat priyatamam nirnam anantam sukham apnoti tadvidvan yastva kinchanaha. Translation. The saint the Brahmana said, everyone considers certain things within the material world to be most dear to him, and because of attachment to such things one eventually becomes miserable. One who understands this gives up material possessiveness and attachment and thus achieves unlimited happiness. Text 2. Samisham kuraram jagnur balino nye niramishaha tadamisham parityaja sa sukham samavindata. Translation. Once a group of large hags who were unable to find any prey attacked another weaker hag who was holding some meat. At that time, being in danger of his life, the hag gave up his meat and experienced actual happiness. Purport. Incited by the modes of nature, Birds become violent and kill other birds to eat them or to steal meat captured by them. Hags, vultures, and eagles are in this category. However, one should give up the envious propensity to commit violence against others and should take to Krishna consciousness, whereby one sees every living entity as equal to oneself. On this platform of equal happiness, one does not envy everyone and thus sees no one as his enemy. Text 3. Na me mana pamanausto na chinta jena putrinam atma krida atmaratir vichara miha balavad. Translation. In family life, the parents are always in anxiety about their home, children, and reputation. But I have nothing to do with these things. I do not worry at all about any family, and I do not care about honor and dishonor. I enjoy only the life of the soul, and I find love on the spiritual platform. Thus I wander the earth like a child. Text 4. Vav eva chintaya muktau paramananda aplutau yo vimukho jado bado yo gunebhyaha param gataha. Translation. In this world, two types of people are free from all anxiety and merged in great happiness. One who is a retarded and childish fool, and one who has approached the Supreme Lord, who is beyond the three modes of material nature. Purport. Those who fervently seek material sense gratification are gradually pushed down into a miserable condition of life, because as soon as one even slightly violates the laws of nature, one must suffer sinful reactions. Thus even materially alert and ambitious persons are constantly in anxiety, and from time to time they are plunged into great misery. Those who are nonsensical and retarded, however, live in a fool's paradise, and those who have surrendered to Lord Krishna are filled with transcendental bliss. Therefore both the fool and the devotee may be said to be peaceful, in the sense that they are free from the ordinary anxiety of the materially ambitious person. However, this does not mean that the devotee and the retarded fool are on the same platform. A fool's peace is like that of a dead stone, whereas a devotee's satisfaction is based on perfect knowledge. Text 5. Kvachit kumaritvatmanam Vrnanam graham agatan swayam tan arahayam asha kvapiyateshu bandhushu. Translation. Once a marriageable young girl was alone in her house because her parents and relatives had gone that day to another place. At that time a few men arrived at the house, specifically desiring to marry her. She received them with all hospitality. Text 6. Tesham abhyavaharartam shalin rahasi partiva avagnantyaha prakoshtastas chakru sankaha svanam mahat. Translation. The girl went to a private place and began to make preparations so that the unexpected male guests could eat. As she was beating the rice, the conchshell bracelets on her arms were colliding and making a loud noise. Text 7. Satajugupshitam matva mahati vriddita tataha babhanjai kaikaksaha sankahan dvaudalpanyurasheshayat. Translation. The young girl feared that the men would consider her family to be poor because their daughter was busily engaged in the menial task of husking rice. Being very intelligent, the shy girl broke the shell bracelets from her arms, leaving just two on each wrist. Text 8. Abhayorapi abhut Hyavagnantya svasankoya sankayoho tatrapi ekam nirabhidat ekashman na bhavad dvanihi. Translation. Thereafter, as the young girl continued to husk the rice, the two bracelets on each wrist continued to collide and make noise. Therefore she took one bracelet off each arm, and with only one left on each wrist, there was no more noise. Text 9. Anvasiksham imam tasya upadisham arindama lokan anucharan charan itan lokatattva vivitsaya. Translation. O subduer of the enemy, I traveled throughout the surface of the earth, learning constantly about the nature of this world, and thus I personally witnessed the lesson of the young girl. Purport. The brāhmaṇa sage here explains to King Yadu that he is not presenting theoretical knowledge. Rather, by wandering throughout the world, the observant and thoughtful brāhmana has personally experienced the lessons learned from all of the above-mentioned gurus. Thus, instead of posing himself to be omniscient like God, he humbly explains that he has faithfully learned these lessons in his travels. Text 10. Vase bahunam kalaho bhavet varta dvayorapi eka eva vaset tasmat kumaryaiva kankanaha. Translation. When many people live together in one place, they will undoubtedly be quarreling, and even if only two people live together, there will be frivolous conversation and disagreement. Therefore, to avoid conflict, one should live alone, as we learn from the example of the bracelet of the young girl. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given a nice example in this regard. Because the young girl mentioned in this story had no husband, she had to fulfill her duties as a host by removing her bracelet so that each wrist held one bracelet only. In the same way, the process of jnana yoga, or spiritual advancement, by philosophical speculation, demands that the speculating sage will live alone, without any other association. Since jnanis have dedicated their lives to speculation, there will undoubtedly be endless argument and quarreling on technical points if many jnanis live together. Therefore, to keep a peaceful atmosphere, they must live alone. On the other hand, the king's daughter, who has been duly married to an aristocratic prince, fulfills her duties to her husband by dressing herself attractively with innumerable ornaments and approaching him for love. Similarly, the goddess of devotion, Bhakti Devi, decorates herself with the innumerable ornaments of the Vaishnavas, who come together to relish the sweet sound of the holy name of the Lord. Because pure Vaishnavas do not intimately associate with non-devotees, it may be said that they reside alone, and thus they also fulfill the purpose of this verse. There cannot be any quarrel among pure Vaishnavas, because they are on the real platform of desirelessness, not wanting even salvation or mystic powers, what to speak of sense gratification. Because they are all devotees of Krishna, they may freely associate with one another for glorifying the Lord, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-34. Naikatmatam me sprahayanti kechin matpada seva bhirata madihaha ye nyonyata bhagavataha prasajya sabhajayante mama paurushani. A pure devotee who is attached to the activities of devotional service and who always engaged in the service of my lotus feet never desires to become one with me. Such a devotee who is unflinchingly engaged always glorifies my pastimes and activities. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented on this verse as follows. The young girl who in the story kept only one bracelet on each wrist so that there would be no noisy conflict among the bracelets. Similarly, one should give up the association of those who are not devoted to the Supreme Lord. This is the actual lesson to be learned. A real Vaishnava is always pure and faultless in character. However, in those places where non-devotees congregate, there will undoubtedly be envious criticism of the devotional service of the Lord. And those who falsely attempt to analyze reality without the Supreme Personality of Godhead will create much disturbing noise in the name of philosophy. Therefore, one should remain in those places where the Supreme Lord is properly worshipped according to the Vedic standard. If everyone is dedicated to glorifying the Personality of Godhead Krishna, there will not be any impediment in mutual association. However, in a place where people have many different purposes besides the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, social dealings will certainly be disrupted. One should therefore avoid the association of those who are inimical to devotional service, otherwise one will be frustrated in achieving the spiritual purpose of life. One who always keeps himself in the company of the devotees of the Lord is actually living alone. If one lives in a community where the only consideration is the pleasure of the Lord, then one can avoid the contradictory situations caused by many persons competing to satisfy their own material desires. This is the lesson intelligently understood by the brāhmaṇa from the bracelets of the young girl. In this connection, Srila Madhvacharya quotes the following: Asajjanaistu janaistu samvaso na kartavyah kathanchana yavat yavaccha bahubhi sajjanai satu muktida. One should not under any circumstance live with those who are not devotees of the Lord. On the other hand, one should stay with many devotees because such association awards liberation. Text 11. Mana ekatra samyujyaj jita svaso jita sanaha vairagyabhyasa yogena triyamanam matandritaha. Translation. Having perfected the yoga sitting postures and conquered the breathing process, one should make the mind steady by detachment and the regulated practice of yoga. Thus one should carefully fix the mind on the single goal of yoga practice. Purport. One should develop vairagya or detachment by observing that all material things are doomed. Thus one should take to the regulated practice of yoga, which in this age means the process of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, the avadhūta Brahmana is recommending Bhakti Mishra Ashtanga Yoga, or the eightfold mystic yoga process performed as an offering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The desire to enjoy the material world is so strong that the mind wanders here and there uncontrollably. Therefore it is stated, Triyamanam, the mind must be fixed in the goal of life, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the perfect stage of mental concentration, called samadhi, there is no longer any distinction between internal and external vision, since one can see the absolute truth everywhere. In the mystic yoga process, one must sit properly, and then it is possible to control the different airs within the body. When the breathing process is controlled, the mind, which is dependent upon the actions of bodily airs, is easily fixed in a higher consciousness. But although the mind may be momentarily controlled, if one is overcome by desire for sense gratification, the mind will again be lost. Thus, this verse emphasizes vairagya, detachment from material illusion. This is attained by abhyasa yoga, the regulated practice of Krishna consciousness, which is the highest yoga system as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Yoginam api sarvesham matgatinantaratmana shraddhavan bhajadeyomam same yuktatamo mataha. And of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. Text 12. Yasmin mano labdha padam yat etaj chanaihi sanair munchati karma renun satvena vrithena rajastamascha vidhuya nirvanam upaiti anindanam. Translation. The mind can be controlled when it is fixed on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Having achieved a stable situation, the mind becomes free from polluted desires to execute material activities. Thus, as the mode of goodness increases in strength, one can completely give up the modes of passion and ignorance, and gradually one transcends even the material mode of goodness. When the mind is freed from the full of the modes of nature, the fire of material existence is extinguished. Then one achieves the transcendental platform of direct relationship with the object of his meditation, the Supreme Lord. Purport. The interaction of the three modes of nature creates great obstacles in one's path of spiritual advancement, and there is danger that one may be thrown down into the darkness of ignorance. Those who are experienced in practical psychology know the dangers of the uncontrolled mind and constantly endeavor to bring the mind under control. If one can free oneself from the influence of the material modes of passion and ignorance, then life becomes very auspicious. Controlling the mind and thereby freeing oneself from the influence of the material modes of nature is the only means of making actual progress in life. The word Yasmin in this verse, according to Srila Sridhar Swami, indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the reservoir of all pleasure. Giving up the material propensities of the mind does not mean merging into an impersonal existence such as that experienced in dreamless sleep. As stated in this verse, Satvena Vrithena, one must become firmly established in the mode of goodness, and then gradually rise onto the spiritual platform where one may dwell in the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 13. Tadaivam atmani avadhūta citto naveda kinchit bahirantaram va yatheshu karanirpatim vrajantam ishau gatatmatnadadarsha parshve. Translation. Thus, when one's consciousness is completely fixed on the Absolute Truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one no longer sees duality or internal and external reality. The example is given of the arrow maker who was so absorbed in making a straight arrow that he did not even see or notice the king himself who was passing right next to him. Purport. It is understood that when a king moves on a public street, he is heralded by kettle drums and other musical instruments, and is accompanied by soldiers and other members of his retinue. Thus, despite this royal extravaganza passing right by his workshop, the arrow maker did not even notice because he was completely absorbed in his prescribed duty of making an arrow straight and sharp. One who is completely absorbed in loving devotion service to the Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna, no longer pays attention to material illusion. In this verse, the word bahis, external, refers to the innumerable objects of material sense gratification, such as food, drink, sex, and so on, which drag the senses of the conditioned soul into material duality. The word antaram, or internal, refers to memory of previous sense gratification or hopes and dreams for future materialistic situations. One who is seeing everywhere the Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna, categorically rejects both internal and external illusion. This is called muktipada, or the status of liberation. On this platform there is neither attraction nor aversion to sense objects. Rather, there is loving absorption in the Absolute Truth, Krishna, and an overwhelming desire to please him by devotional service. One who gives up the reality of Krishna will be forced to wander uselessly in the kingdom of mental speculation. One who cannot see that the Absolute Truth, Lord Krishna, is the background and basis of everything that exists, will be bewildered by the false concept that there is something that is not Krishna. Everything emanates from the Lord, and He is the Lord of everything. This simple understanding is the actual existential situation. Text 14. Ekachari aniketaha syad apramatto guhasayaha alakya manaj acharya acharayir murirekulpa bhashanaha. Translation. A saintly person should remain alone and constantly travel without any fixed residence. Being alert, he should remain secluded and should act in such a way that he is not recognized or noticed by others. Moving without companions, he should not speak more than required. Purport. The previous narration concerning the shell bracelets of the young girl demonstrates that even saintly persons engaged in ordinary yoga process should remain alone to avoid conflict or disturbance. In other words, persons engaged in ordinary yoga processes should not even associate with each other. This verse indirectly refers to the serpent who, fearing attack from human beings, keeps himself secluded. From this example, we learn that a saintly person should not associate with ordinary materialistic people. He should also avoid having a fixed residence and should wander unnoticed by others. Our engagement in material existence is the cause of our unhappiness. Such engagement destroys the real purpose of our life, Krishna consciousness. Somehow or other one must give up the deep-rooted attachment to material society, friendship and love. One must practice detachment, and by surrender to the principles of Krishna consciousness, one's auspicious life will begin. By organizing one's life according to the varnashrama system, one can take the first step in self-realization. In other words, one should accept an honest occupation and regulate his sex life either by giving it up entirely as a brahmachari or sannyasi or by living as a married householder. Without regulating one's occupation and personal life, there will be chaos, and it will be very difficult to make spiritual advancement. The attachments to material society, friendship and love are based on a long previous experience in the material world. They are great obstacles in the path of transcendental understanding, and if one maintains them, spiritual progress will be most difficult. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught by his example and perfect that a devotee should and should not do, and obedience to such principles brings one to the path of supreme perfection. Thus one has to rise above ordinary social custom, which directs the living entity toward useless sense gratification. Text 15. Prarambo hi dukyaya viphalas chadruvatmanaha sarpaha parakritam vishma pravishya sukham medate. Translation. When a person living in a temporary material body tries to construct a happy home, the result is fruitless and miserable. The snake, however, enters a home that has been built by others and prospers happily. Purport. The snake does not have the proclivity to build his own home, but rather lives in a suitable place constructed by other creatures. Thus he does not entangle himself in the labor of home building. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that although materialistic persons take unlimited pains to invent and mass produce electricity, automobiles, airplanes, etc., ultimately these things are meant for the convenience of the Vaishnavas who are preaching Krishna consciousness. The karmis will always go to such trouble, and the devotees will always offer such laborious productions to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by engaging them in His loving service. The devotees, being concerned with the ultimate perfection of life, do not personally struggle for material advancement. On the other hand, there is no need for the devotees to artificially imitate the austere lifestyle of ancient times. A devotee's goal is simply to serve Krishna as nicely as possible. Therefore, the devotees willingly accept beautiful mansions and all types of material opulences, not with any personal attachment, but only so that these things can be engaged in the loving service of the Lord. If one engages such things with a desire to enjoy them, one falls down from the platform of pure devotional service. Materialistic persons are only interested in exploiting their so-called yoga practice in order to rejuvenate their sexual potency or to vainly remember their previous conditioned lives, thus applying mysticism to the endless search for sense gratification. They do not understand the actual goal of human life. Text 16. Eko narayano devaha purvasrishtam samayaya samritya kala kalaya kalpantaidamishvaraha ekaevadvittiyo bud atmadharo kilashrayaha. Translation. The Lord of the universe, Narayana, is the worshipable God of all living entities. Without extraneous assistance, the Lord creates this universe by His own potency, and at the time of annihilation, the Lord destroys the universe through His personal expansion of time and withdraws all of the cosmos, including all the conditioned living entities, within Himself. Thus, His unlimited self is the shelter and reservoir of all potencies. The subtle pradhana, the basis of all cosmic manifestation, is conserved within the Lord and is in this way not different from Him. In the aftermath of annihilation, the Lord stands alone. Purport. As will be explained in verse 21 of this chapter, the Lord's independent creation and annihilation of the universe can be compared to the spider's creating and withdrawing his web. The word eka, or one alone, is mentioned twice in this verse to emphasize that there is only one Supreme Personality of Godhead and that all universal affairs as well as spiritual pastimes are conducted by His potency alone. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, this verse refers to Karanarnavashai Vishnu or Mahavishnu lying in the ocean, causal ocean. The words Atmadhara and Akhilashraya both indicate that Narayana is the reservoir of shelter of all existence. Atmadhara indicates that the Lord's personal body is the shelter of everything. Mahavishnu is a plenary portion of Lord Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whose body expand the innumerable potencies that manifest the material and spiritual worlds. According to the Brahma Samhita, these innumerable worlds rest within the Brahmajyoti or spiritual effulgence, also emanating from the Lord's body. Thus Krishna is Ishvara, the Supreme Controller. Kalenatmanu bhavena samyam nitashu shaktishu satvadishvati purushaha pradhana purusheshvaraha paravaranam parama ashtikaivalya samyataha kevalanubhavananda sandoho nirupadikaha. Translation. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead displays His own potency in the form of time and guides His material potencies, such as the mode of goodness, into a natural condition of equilibrium, He remains as the supreme controller of that natural state called pradhana, as well as of the living entities. He is also the supreme worshipable object for all beings, including liberated souls, demigods, and ordinary conditioned souls. The Lord is eternally free from any material designation, and He constitutes the totality of spiritual bliss, which one experiences by seeing the Lord's spiritual form. The Lord thus exhibits the fullest meaning of the word liberation. Purport. One who fixes his mind in the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, gets immediate relief from the waves of material anxiety because the Lord's transcendental form is completely free of any material contamination or designation. Less intelligent persons accept the illogical doctrine that the Lord is transformed into His creation and maintains no separate individual existence. They falsely imagine that they can merge their individuality into the universal oneness and become exactly equal to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, in the opinion of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Personality of Godhead is not impersonal but is instead full of all transcendental qualities. The three modes of material nature constitute his inferior energy, and the omnipotent time factor upon which the modes rest is the personal expansion of the Lord. Thus the Lord creates, maintains, and annihilates the material manifestation and yet remains completely apart from it. The conditioned souls who desire to exploit the Lord's inferior creation are impelled by the personality of Godhead to do so. And thus they become imitation enjoyers in the temporary world of matter. But when one gains practical experience that the gross and subtle material bodies are simply coverings of the eternal soul, one gives up the foolishness of material attachment and becomes attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He realizes that his constitutional position is neither to enjoy matter nor merge into the Lord's existence. His real nature is that he is a servant of God. Service rendered to the Lord is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, and by the potency of such service one becomes liberated and his activities become glorious. Such service is eternal and gradually promotes one to the platform of Kevalanu Bhavananda Sandoha, or merging into the ocean of bliss by seeing the transcendental personal form of the Lord. Text 19. Kevalatmanubhavena svamayam trigunatmikam sankshopayan srajati adau taya sutram arindama. Translation. A subduer of the enemies, at the time of creation the personality of Godhead expands his own transcendental potency in the form of time, and agitating his material energy, Maya, composed of the three modes of material nature, he creates the Mahatattva. Purport. The word Kevala means pure and indicates that the Lord's Kala Shakti or time potency is a transcendental energy, non-different from his personal body. The brāhmaṇa addressing King Yadu here as Arindama, subduer of the enemies. This indicates that although the topic of Maya or illusory creation is being discussed, the king need not worry because as a staunch devotee of the Lord, he is able to subdue the real enemies of life, namely lust, anger, and greed, which make one a prisoner in Maya's kingdom. The word Sutram indicates the Mahatattva on which many material creations rest, just like jewels rest on a thread. In the state of pradhana or material equilibrium, the modes of nature do not interact. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila explains in his Sankhya teachings that the Supreme Personality of Godhead agitates the natural state of nature and thus creation takes place. The created manifest form of nature in which fruitive activities are stimulated is called Mahatattva as indicated in this verse. If one tries to renounce the illusory creation of the Lord by taking shelter of impersonal Vedanta philosophy, thus artificially equating the infinite consciousness of the Lord and the infinitesimal consciousness of the conditioned soul, one's analysis will fall far short of reality. The word swamayam in this verse indicates that the illusory potency that covers the conditioned souls is always subordinate to the Lord, whose consciousness is infallible and infinite and who is always a person. Text 20. Tamahustri guna vyaktim srajantim vishvato mukham yasmin protam midam vishvam yena samsarate puman. Translation. According to great sages, that which is the basis of the three modes of material nature and which manifests the variegated universe is called the Sutra or Mahatattva. Indeed, this universe is resting within the Mahatattva, and due to its potency, the living entity undergoes material existence. Purport. The cosmic manifestation is a reality because it emanates from the Supreme Reality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The material world, however, is temporary and full of problems. The conditioned soul foolishly tries to become the lord of this inferior creation and becomes separated from his real friend, the Supreme Lord. In this state, his only business is material sense gratification, and his real knowledge is lost. Text 21. Yathornanabhir hridayat urnam santatya vaktrataha taya vihritya bhuyastam grasatevam maheshvaraha. Translation. Just as from within himself the spider expands thread through his mouth, plays with it for some time and eventually swallows it, similarly the Supreme Personality of Godhead expands his personal potency from within himself. Thus the Lord displays the network of cosmic manifestation, utilizes it according to his purpose, and eventually withdraws it completely within himself. Purport. One who is intelligent obtains spiritual knowledge even from an insignificant creature like the spider. Thus transcendental knowledge is visible everywhere for one whose eyes are opened in Krishna consciousness. Text 22. Yatra yatra mano dehi dharayet sakalam diya snehat veshad bhayad vapi yati tat swarupatam. Translation. If out of love, hate or fear, an embodied soul fixes his mind with intelligence and complete concentration upon a particular bodily form, he will certainly attain the form that he is meditating upon. If out of love, hate or fear, an embodied soul fixes his mind with intelligence and complete concentration upon a particular bodily form, he will certainly attain the form that he is meditating upon. Purport. From this verse it is not hard to understand that if one constantly meditates upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one will achieve a spiritual body just like that of the Lord. The word diya, which with intelligence indicates completely intellectual conviction in a particular understanding, and similarly the word sakalam indicates one-pointed attention of the mind. With such complete absorption of consciousness, surely one will attain in the next life a form exactly like that upon which one was meditating. This is another example learned from the insect kingdom as explained in the following verse. Text 23. Kitaha peshashkritam dadyayan kudyam tina praveshitaha yati tat satmatam rajan purvarupam asantyajan. Translation. O king, once a wasp forced the weaker insect to enter his hive and kept him trapped there. In great fear, the weak insect constantly meditated upon his capture, and without giving up his body, he gradually achieved the same state of existence as the wasp. Thus, one achieves a state of existence according to one's constant concentration. Purport. The following question may be raised: since the weaker insect in this story did not physically change his body, how can it be said that he achieved the same state of existence as the wasp? Actually, by constant meditation upon a particular object, one's consciousness becomes filled with its qualities. Due to extreme fear, the smaller insect was absorbed in the characteristics and activities of the large wasp, and thus entered into the existence of the wasp. Due to such meditation, he actually took the body of a wasp in his next life. Similarly, although we are conditioned souls, if we absorb our consciousness in Lord Krishna, we can become liberated even before giving up our present body. If our intelligence becomes steady on the spiritual platform by understanding that Lord Krishna is everything, then we can give up the unnecessary consciousness of the external body and absorb ourselves in the spiritual pastimes of Vaikuntha. Thus, even before death, one can raise oneself to the spiritual platform and enjoy life as a liberated soul. Or if one is a stubborn fool, then even in this life, one can become just like an animal, such as a hog or a dog, constantly thinking of eating and sex life. But human life is actually meant for understanding the science of consciousness and the future results of our meditation. Text 24. Evam gurubhya etebhya esha me shikshita matihi svatmopashikshitam buddhim shrunu me vadataha prabho. Translation: O King, from all the spiritual masters I have acquired great wisdom. Now please listen as I explain what I learned from my own body. Text 25. Deho gurur mama virakti viveka hetur Bibharatsma sattva nidhanam satatarte udagam tatvani anena vimrshami yatha tathapi parakyam mityavasito vicharami asangaha. Translation: The material body is also my spiritual master because it teaches me detachment. Being subject to creation and destruction, it always comes to a painful end. Thus, although using my body to acquire knowledge, I always remember that it will ultimately be consumed by others, and remaining detached, I move about this world. Purport: The words yatha tathapi are significant in this verse. Although the body bestows great benefit by enabling one to learn about this world, one should always remember its unhappy, inevitable future. If cremated, the body is burned to ashes by fire, it lost in a lonely place, it is consumed by jackals and vultures. And if buried in a luxurious coffin, it decomposes and it is consumed by insignificant insects and worms. Thus it is described as parakyam, untimely to be consumed by others. One should, however, carefully maintain bodily health to execute Krishna consciousness, but without undue affection or attachment. By studying the body's birth and death, one can acquire virakti, viveka, the intelligence to detach oneself from useless things. The word avasita indicates conviction. One should be convinced of all the truth of Krishna consciousness. Text 26. Jayatma jarta pashu graptavargan pushnati yat priya chikirshaya vitanvan svante sakrichram avadhūta danaha sadehaha srishtvasya bijam avasithati vrikshadharmaha. Translation: A man attached to the body accumulates money with great struggle to expand and protect the position of his wife, children, property, domestic animals, servants, homes, relatives, friends, and so on. He does all this for the gratification of his own body. As a tree before dying produces the seed of a future tree, the dying body manifests the seed of one's next material body in the form of one's accumulated karma, thus assuring the continuation of material existence. The material body sinks down and dies. Purport: One might argue, among all the gurus mentioned thus far, The material body is certainly the best, since it affords the detachment and fine intelligence that enable one to engage in the devotional service of the Lord. Thus we should serve the body, although it is temporary, with great detachment, or risk the offense of ungratefulness. How can detachment from the body be recommended when the body is endowed with so many wonderful qualities? The answer is given in this verse. The body does not afford detachment and knowledge in the manner of some benevolent teacher. Rather, it causes so much pain and misery that any common sense person cannot help being convinced of the uselessness of material life. Just as a tree produces the seeds of the next tree and then dies, the body's lusty desires induce the conditioned soul to create a further chain of karma. Finally, a body having paved the way for unlimited suffering in material existence drops dead. According to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Deha indicates both the gross body and the subtle, mental body. Those who do not clearly understand the difference between body and soul falsely think that body and soul are identical, and that one can find perfect happiness in bodily sense gratification. But those who foolishly accept the temporary body as all important cannot be compared with self-realized souls who intelligently understand the superiority of the eternal soul. Text 27. Jivai katomum apakarshati karhitarsha shishno nyatasta gudaram shravanam kutaschid Granonyatascha paladrika cha karma shaktir bhāhyā sapatnyaiva dehapatim nunanti. Translation. A man who has many wives is constantly harassed by them. He is responsible for their maintenance, and thus all the ladies constantly pull him in different directions, each struggling for her self-interest. Similarly, the material senses harass the conditioned soul, pulling him in many different directions at once. On one side, the tongue is pulling him to arrange tasty food, then thirst drags him to get a suitable drink. Simultaneously, the sex organs clamor for satisfaction, and the sense of touch demands soft, sensuous objects. The belly harasses him until it is filled. The ears demand to hear pleasing sounds. The sense of smell hankers for pleasant aromas, and the fickle eyes clamor for pleasing sights. Thus the sense organs and limbs, all desiring satisfaction, pull the living entity in many directions. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions that after understanding this verse, one should merely offer without detachment the bare necessities of the Guru of one's body. One should keep one's body fit and working in the simplest possible way, and that is the sum and substance of service to the so-called Guru. If one desires to faithfully serve the body, one should consider that the body pulls the consciousness of the conditioned soul in many ways at once. And thus for the servant of the body there is no possibility of understanding God or even of becoming peaceful. Text 28. Srishta purani vividhani ajayatma shaktya vrikshan sarirpa pashun kagadandashukan taisthairatushta hridayaha purusham vidhaya brāhmavalokadishanam mudamma padevaha. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, expanding His own potency, Maya Shakti, created innumerable species of life to house the conditioned souls. Yet by creating the forms of trees, reptiles, animals, birds, snakes, and so on, the Lord was not satisfied within His heart. Then He created human life, which offers the conditioned soul sufficient intelligence to perceive the absolute truth, and became pleased. Purport. God has specially created the human form of life to facilitate the liberation of the conditioned soul. Therefore, one who abuses human life prepares his path to hell. As stated in the Vedas, Purushatve chavistaram Atma In the human form of life, there is good possibility of understanding the eternal soul. The Vedas also state, Tabyoham anayata abruvan navaino yam alamiti Tabyo swam anayata abruvan navaino yam alamiti Tabyaha purusham anayata abruvan sukritam bata. The purport of this Shruti mantra is that lower forms of life, such as the cow and horses, are not actually suitable to fulfill the purpose of creation, but human life affords the opportunity to understand one's eternal relationship with God. Thus one must control the material senses and fulfill the real purpose of human life. If one takes to Krishna consciousness, the Supreme Lord personally feels happiness and gradually reveals himself to his devotee. The Lord's material creation consists of the living entities and dead matter, which the less intelligent try to enjoy. The Lord, however, is not satisfied by those pieces that blindly strive for sense gratification without understanding spiritual nature. We are suffering due to our forgetfulness of Krishna and the blissful situation of his abode. If we accept the Lord as protector and shelter and execute his order, we can easily revive our eternal blissful nature as part and parcel of the personality of Godhead. It is for this purpose that the Lord has created human life. Text 29. Labdva sudurlabam idam bahu sambhavante Manusyamartadam anityam apivadiraha Turnam yate tanapate danum mrityuyavan Nishreyasya vishayaha kalu sarvataha syat. Translation. After many births and death, one achieves the rare human form of life, which although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Thus a sober human being should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection of life as long as his body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. After all, sense gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is possible only for a human being. Purport. Material life essentially means repeated birth and death. Even the lowest forms of life, such as reptiles, insects, pigs, and dogs, have ample opportunity for sense gratification. Even ordinary housewives have a busy sex life and thus multiply rapidly. Houseflies. Human life, however, enables one to understand the absolute truth and is therefore full of grave responsibility. Since the valuable human life is not eternal, we should do the needful to achieve the highest perfection in Krishna consciousness. Before death appears, we should seriously cultivate our real self-interest. One can experience Krishna consciousness in the association of devotees of the Lord. Without their association, one is in danger of being attracted to an impersonal conception of life, which causes one to fall away from devotion service to the absolute truth, or being discouraged by one's failure to understand the absolute truth. One may return to the false platform of sense gratification. In conclusion, human life is meant for cultivating Krishna consciousness under the guidance of the experienced self-realized devotees of the Lord. Text 30. Evam sanjata vairagyo vijnanaloka atmani vicharami mahimetam mukta sangha nahan kritaha. Translation. Having learned from my spiritual masters, I remain situated in realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and fully renounced and enlightened by realized spiritual knowledge, wander the earth without detachment or false ego. Text 31. Nahi ekasmat gurur jnanam sustiram syat pushkalam brahmaitad advitiyam vai giyate bahudharshibhihi. Translation. Although the Absolute Truth is one without a second, the sages have desired him in many different ways. Therefore one may not be able to acquire very firm or complete knowledge from one spiritual master. The Absolute Truth is one without a second. The sages have described him in many different ways, therefore one may not be able to acquire very firm, complete knowledge from one spiritual master. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami comments on this verse as follows. The statement that one requires many spiritual masters certainly needs explanation, since practically all great saintly persons of the past did not take shelter of many spiritual masters, but rather accepted one. The words Gyate Bahudharshibihi, the Absolute Truth is glorified in many ways by the sages, indicate the personal and impersonal understandings of the Absolute Truth. In other words, some sages describe only the Lord's impersonal effulgence, which is without spiritual variety, whereas others describe the Lord's manifest form as the Personality of Godhead. Thus, merely by hearing from many different authorities, one cannot actually learn the highest perfection of life. The proliferation of differing spiritual authorities is useless, only to counteract the living entity's tendency to be grossly materialistic. Different spiritual philosophers create faith in the existence of the soul and may be accepted at that level. But as will be clarified in later verses, the spiritual master who ultimately gives perfect knowledge is one. Srila Jiva Goswami comments as follows on this verse. Since it is commonly understood that one is to accept a single spiritual master, why is it recommended that one learn from many so-called spiritual masters appearing in the forms of ordinary material objects? The explanation is that one's worshipable spiritual master will instruct one in many departments of knowledge by giving lessons gleaned from ordinary objects. As recommended by the brāhmaṇa avadhūta, one can strengthen the teachings received from one's acharya and avoid transgressing his orders by observing ordinary things in nature. One should not mechanically receive the teachings of one's guru. The disciple should be thoughtful and with his own intelligence realize in practice what he has heard from his spiritual master by observing the world around him. In this sense, one may accept many gurus, though not those who preach against the knowledge received from the bona fide spiritual master. In other words, one should not hear from persons like the atheist Kapila. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also comments on this verse as follows. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Tasmat Gurum Prapadyeta Jigyasuhu Shreya Uttamam. Therefore, one should approach a bona fide spiritual master if one actually desires to achieve the highest perfection in life. Similarly, in chapter 10, verse 5 of this canto, the Personality of Godhead himself states, Madabhijanam Abhigam Gurum Shantam Upasita Madatmakam. One must serve a bona fide spiritual master who is in full knowledge of my personality and who is not different from me. There are many similar verses in Vedic literature indicating that one must take shelter of a single bona fide spiritual master. We also have the examples of innumerable great saintly persons who did not accept more than one spiritual master. Thus it is a fact that we should accept one bona fide spiritual master and receive from him the particular mantra that one is to chant. I myself certainly follow this principle and worship my bona fide spiritual master. However, in worshipping one's acharya, one may take help from good and bad examples. By observing examples of good behavior, one will be strengthened in devotion service, and in seeing negative examples, one will be forewarned and avoid danger. In this way, one may accept many ordinary material objects as one's spiritual masters, considering them as shiksha gurus, or gurus who give important lessons for spiritual advancement. Thus, in the Lord's own words, Madabhigam Gurum Jam Gurum Shantam Upashita Mad Atmakam, one should approach a single bona fide spiritual master who is in full knowledge of the Lord's personality and sincerely worship him, considering him to be Madatmakam, or none different from the Lord himself. This statement does not contradict what the Lord has presented in the teachings of the avadhūta brāhmaṇa. If one receives the teachings of one's acharya but keeps them locked up in his brain as theoretical dogma, one will make little advancement. To develop steady, complete knowledge, one must see the teachings of one's acharya everywhere. Thus, a Vaishnava offers all respects to anyone or anything that gives him further enlightenment in the path of worshipping his bona fide acharya, who is not different from the Lord Krishna. Among the many gurus mentioned by the brāhmana, some give positive instructions and others give negative instructions. Pingala, the prostitute, and the young girl who took off her bracelet provide examples of proper conduct, whereas the helpless pigeons and the foolish honeybee provide examples of behavior to be avoided. In both cases, one's spiritual knowledge is enriched. Thus, one should not misunderstand the meaning of this verse in a way contradictory to the Lord's statement, Madabhidyam Gurum Santam Upasita Madatmakam Bhagavad Gita. Text 32. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Niti Uktva Sayadum Viprastam Amantrya Gabhirajihi Vanditaha Svarchito Raja Yaya Uprito Yatha Gatam. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, having thus spoken to King Yadu, the wise brāhmana accepted obeisances and worship from the king and felt pleased within himself. Then bidding farewell, he left exactly as he had come. Purport. Srila Sridhar Swami gives evidence from Srimad Bhagavatam that the brāhmana avadhūta was actually the incarnation of Godhead Dattatreya. The Bhagavatam states, Yat pada pankaja paraga pavitra deha yogardim apuro bhayim yadu hayhayadyaha. Many yadus, hayhayas, etc. became so purified by the grace of the lotus feet of Dattatreya, the Lord, that they obtained both material and spiritual blessings. This verse mentions that Yadu was purified by contact with the lotus feet of Dattatreya. And similarly, the present verse states, Mandito Svarchito Raja. King Yadu worshipped the lotus feet of the brāhmana. Thus, according to Srila Sridhar Swami, the avadhūta brāhmana is the personality of Godhead himself, and this is confirmed by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Text 33. Avadhūta vachaha shrutva purvesham naha sa purvajaha sarvasanga vinirmuktaha samachitto babhuvaha. Translation. O Uddhava, hearing the words of the avadhūta, the saintly King Yadu, who is the forefather of our own ancestors, became free from all material attachment, and thus his mind was evenly fixed on the spiritual platform. Purport. Here the Lord praises his own dynasty called Yadu Vamsha, because there appeared in that dynasty many great self-realized kings. King Yadu was enlightened by Dattatreya in the form of an avadhūta brāhmana, who told the king to fix his consciousness on the spiritual platform of detachment by simply observing the creation of God. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 11th Canto, 9th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Detachment from All That is Material.